There's no explosion, no dramatic failure. It arrives quietly, almost politely. You wake up, you follow the same routine, you answer messages, you get through the day. From the outside, everything looks normal, functional, stable, but inside, something feels wrong. It's like moving constantly, but never actually going anywhere. Days melt into weeks. Weeks vanish into months. And then, one morning, the realization lands not as panic, but as a heavy, dull awareness. Nothing has changed. You're standing in the same place you were a year ago. The goals that once energized you are still sitting there untouched. The promises you made to yourself feel distant, like they belonged to someone else entirely. You're not tired in the way sleep fixes. You're weighed down. Every step forward feels like walking through resistance you can't see. And then the questions turn inward. Why am I like this? Why does everyone else seem to move forward while I'm frozen? What's wrong with me? Here's what almost no one tells you. This feeling doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you lack discipline. And it definitely doesn't mean you don't want more. In fact, this state most often shows up in people who do care deeply about growth, but who've been fighting against an internal system they don't yet understand. Because sometimes the problem isn't that nothing is happening. It's that too much is happening inside. Your mind is busy. Your body is alert, but your direction is gone. This strange pause where life keeps moving, but you don't isn't failure. It's a signal, a quiet alarm from your nervous system saying, the way you've been living no longer matches who you're becoming. And before trying to fix it, you need to understand it. But before we go any further, there's something important you need to hear and possibly unlearn. Being stuck is not the same as resting. Rest is intentional. It's chosen. You pause because you're restoring something. And when you rest, your body knows it has permission. There's no guilt, no pressure, no internal argument. Being stuck feels completely different. Stuckness happens when you want to move but can't. When one part of you reaches forward while another slams the brakes. It's unwanted stillness, not peace, not recovery, just friction. And this is where people turn against themselves. They call it laziness, weakness, a motivation problem, a character flaw. But that interpretation is not only wrong, it's damaging, because it treats a psychological state like a moral failure. Here's the truth. If being stuck frustrates you, that means something inside you still wants change, still wants growth, still wants more. Someone who's truly unmotivated doesn't feel tension. They feel numb. You feel resistance. Your mind is caught between two forces. One sees where you want to go. The other is wired to keep you safe, familiar, and predictable. When those collide, forward motion doesn't feel empowering. It feels dangerous. You're not broken. You're experiencing what happens when a nervous system built for survival is asked to transform faster than it feels safe doing. And once you understand that, self-blame begins to loosen its grip. To see why change feels so hard, we have to stop asking what's wrong with you and start asking what your brain is designed to do. Your brain isn't built for fulfillment. It's built for survival. For most of human history, survival meant one thing: stay within what's known. Familiar territory meant food, shelter, safety. The unknown meant risk. That wiring still exists. So when you think about changing your life, leaving a job, starting something new, committing to a different routine, your brain doesn't interpret that as growth. It interprets it as threat. Even if your current life feels empty or painful, it's predictable. and predictability feels safe to a survival-based nervous system. That's why people stay in situations they actively dislike. The brain prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar uncertainty. There's also another force at work: psychological homeostasis. Just as your body regulates temperature, your mind tries to maintain a consistent identity: who you've been, how you're seen, what feels normal. When you try to change too quickly, that system pushes back, not to sabotage you, but to restore balance. That pushback often shows up as exhaustion, anxiety, brain fog, or a sudden loss of motivation. Here's the reframe most people miss: that resistance isn't weakness. It's protection, misfiring. Your system is trying to keep you alive, using outdated rules, until you see that every attempt at change feels like fighting yourself. But once you understand it, the question shifts from "why can't I move?" to "what does my nervous system need to feel safe enough to move?" You still think about what you should do, but the urgency is gone. The belief that trying will lead somewhere meaningful has faded. Eventually, not trying feels less painful than hoping. This isn't apathy. This is learned helplessness. Psychologists discovered it when repeated attempts to escape discomfort led nowhere. Over time, the mind stopped testing possibilities, not because escape was impossible, but because experience taught it that effort didn't matter. In real life, this builds slowly. You apply for jobs and hear nothing back. You start projects that go nowhere. You put yourself out there and feel unseen or rejected. Each time something subtle gets recorded in the nervous system, my actions don't change the outcome. Eventually, effort feels pointless, not as a thought, but as a bodily truth. So when opportunities appear later, you hesitate, you stall, you delay. And tragically, this gets labeled as laziness. But laziness is indifference. Learned helplessness is grief disguised as stillness. There's often shame attached to it. People blame themselves for not pushing harder without realizing that pushing once hurt, and the nervous system remembers. Here's the key insight: learned helplessness isn't permanent, it's learned. And anything learned can be unlearned through pressure, but through proof. The system doesn't need discipline, it needs evidence. Evidence that small effort leads to a different result, that reaching again won't carry the same emotional cost. You don't escape this state by leaping forward. You escape it by gently proving again and again that your actions matter. And that proof starts far smaller than you think. At first glance, it doesn't look like a problem. You have options, endless ones, career paths, self-improvement methods, advice everywhere, new routines, new tools, new videos. Every day, it should feel empowering. Instead, you freeze, you think, you compare, you research, you save content, you wait for clarity before taking the first step. And without noticing, momentum disappears. This is the overchoice trap. When the mind faces too many possible futures, it struggles to commit to any of them. Not because you lack ambition, but because choosing one path means letting go of all the others. That loss feels heavier than it should, so the mind delays. You call it being responsible, strategic, careful. Underneath, it's fear. Fear of choosing wrong, fear of wasting time, fear of realizing too late that another option was better. The result is paralysis, disguised as preparation. Here's the quiet truth: clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. Most people don't fail because they chose the wrong path. They fail because they never chose one at all. They stay in possibility where nothing can be tested, nothing proven, and nothing moves. And while they wait, life keeps going. Sometimes the most dangerous choice isn't choosing wrong, it's choosing nothing. Another force keeps people stuck, one that works beneath awareness. It's the gap between who you believe you are and how you're actually living. You may see yourself as capable, creative, driving someone with potential. But when you look at your daily actions, the picture doesn't match. That gap creates tension. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. Emotionally, it feels like an internal war. Every time your behavior contradicts your identity, discomfort appears. The mind has to resolve it. There are only two options: change behavior or protect identity. Changing behavior is hard. It involves risk and uncertainty. Protecting identity is easier. So the mind rationalizes. I'm not procrastinating. I'm preparing. I'm not avoiding. I'm waiting for the right time. These aren't lies. They're psychological armor. They let you preserve who you think you are without confronting the pain of not living it. But the cost grows. The longer that gap exists, the more energy it drains. Confidence erodes. Motivation fades. Stuckness becomes the price of avoiding that truth. Here's the deeper reality. Feeling stuck often means an old identity no longer fits. You're not failing to become who you are. You're resisting the discomfort of letting go of who you thought you were. And that resistance keeps the conflict alive. One of the most confusing parts of being stuck is this. You know what to do, but you can make yourself do it. From the outside, it looks like procrastination. From the inside, it feels physical, because it is. When the brain senses uncertainty as danger, it sends signals to the body. The nervous system enters survival mode, and one response often takes over: freeze. Freeze isn't panic. It's not fight or flight. It's the system deciding that staying still is safer than acting. Energy collapses inward. Your body feels heavy. Even small tasks feel overwhelming. This isn't a willpower failure. It's the threat detection system overriding the thinking brain. That's why just push through it advice fails. You can't think your way out of a bodily state. And here's the shift that changes everything. Your system isn't sabotaging you, it's protecting you. It believes action equals danger, even if that danger is failure, judgment, or identity loss. In the modern world, freeze keeps you safe from nothing and costs you everything. So the solution isn't force, it's safety. The body doesn't need pressure, it needs reassurance. There's one more layer, one rooted in chemistry, not character. Motivation isn't a personality trait, it's neurochemical. At the center is dopamine, the signal for anticipation and reward. In a balanced system, dopamine follows effort. You work, persist, and the brain learns. This was worth it. Modern life changed that. Today, dopamine is instant, scrolling, notifications, snacks, videos, no effort required. The brain adapts. Why struggle for delayed rewards when comfort is always available? This is how quiet addiction forms, not dramatic, just numbing enough to stall growth. Meaningful goals begin to feel heavy. Focus feels hard, not because you don't care, but because your brain expects easier rewards. Comfort becomes the cage. The way out isn't punishment or extreme discipline. It's awareness on small distance from easy relief. So what actually breaks the cycle? Not motivation, not force. Momentum returns through safety first, then movement. Change your language. I am stuck becomes I'm rebuilding momentum. Lower the bar. Permission to start badly. Aim for a B- effort. Use the do something rule. One tiny action. Proof that movement isn't dangerous. Address dopamine gently. Create friction around numbing habits. Anchor everything in micro habits. Repetition over transformation. Momentum grows from trust, not pressure. If there's one thing to remember, it's this. Feeling stuck isn't a life sentence. It's a threshold. It appears when an old life no longer fits and a new one hasn't formed yet. That space feels heavy, lonely, confusing, but it's also where change begins. If nothing inside you wanted more, you wouldn't feel this tension. You don't need certainty. You don't need the full path. You need one honest step. If this video made you feel seen, you're not alone. This channel exists for the quiet moments people don't talk about. Subscribe if you want to explore the psychology behind growth and healing. And if this resonated, leave a comment. Sometimes the first step forward is letting yourself be heard.